Ah, the adolescent years, filled with fun and frivolity. Think again. It's increasingly turning into a time of stress and expectations. In fact, just ask a teenager how they are feeling, and likely you will hear or experience the word anxiety. While anxiety is a broad term, this brief presentation will provide an overview of strategies for working with adolescents, particularly those in high school, and will cover three general areas: today's youth, adult influences, and fostering resiliency. So, what is anxiety? Well, anxiety is a normal feeling that everyone experiences at some time. Anxiety is a natural response that is useful in helping us avoid dangerous situations and motivates us to solve everyday problems. Anxiety can occur in a variety of circumstances, from everyday problems such as stresses at school, home, or work, to feelings that a person's life is in danger. The situation does not have to be a negative to cause anxiety. Anxiety varies in severity and can change from a mild uneasiness to a panic attack. It can last for a few moments, days, months, or even a lifetime. Excessive anxiety can result in a fight or flight reaction. The fighter part is always ready for battle and cannot relax, and the flight part flees to avoid any situation. Anxiety affects the way a person feels, thinks, and behaves, and if not treated, could become chronic and lead to considerable suffering, depression, or substance abuse. Ask any teacher or parent, and likely the response that you will hear is that things have changed dramatically for students over the past couple of decades. In fact, according to psychiatrist Robert Lee, the average high school student today has the same level of anxiety as the average psychiatric patient in the early 1950s. And if we look at the stats for Canada, provided by the Canadian Mental Health Association, it appears to support Lee's findings. For instance, 1 in 5 suffer from some form of mental issue. 3.2 million teens are at risk of depression. 4,000 commit suicide each year. And we hold the third highest suicide rate in the industrial world. On average, our government spends $6.3 billion a year on prevention and treatment. So, what are some of the factors that can influence or prevent anxiety in our students? The root can be traced to the influence of the adults in the teen's life. Child psychiatrist Jean Clinton outlines a number of factors that impact today's youth, factors including taking safer risks, the erosion of family supports, and the influence of society acting as a social organism. First, Clinton suggests that the teenage brain is under construction, and as such, anxiety in teens cannot be played off as just typical hormonal behavior. While she does argue that there is a desire in teens to seek emotional thrills, she suggests that through practice and reinforcing of positive behaviors, students can develop healthy decision-making processes, ones which will ultimately help them to overcome their anxiety. Second, Clinton points out that the increasing stress on families, the extracurricular activities to fill time, such as swimming, dance, or hockey, have resulted in parents directing and correcting their children's lives rather than what is really important, connecting with teens and making them feel safe and valid. Ultimately, what Clinton argues is that because our lives have become increasingly insular and we have no longer rely on society to fill a role in teaching and correcting behavior, parents and teens are at a loss for understanding. What she argues is that the day-to-day, the serve and return of positive interactions between parent and teen changes their behavior and increases the stability in their lives, which ultimately impacts their anxiety level. As parents and significant adults in a teen's life, we need to remember that it is not about the power that we have over them, but the influence we have on their behavior. So, what can we do to help students overcome anxiety? Well, at least, it's about teaching students to bounce back from these setbacks and to foster in them skills to become more resilient in the long run. To be more specific, by working with four core strategies, teachers can effectively address anxiety within students. The first is to identify those students who might be suffering with anxiety. Next, we need to create an intentional system for handling those situations that might result in a student becoming anxious. Then, working with the student, seek alternatives to the triggers for their anxiety. And finally, foster in our classrooms the notion of the positive self-talk. In my division, there's a protocol in place for working with students who have anxiety. The first step is to assess the risk of suicide and/or harm. If it's non-catastrophic, then we move on to the next step. And that is to listen. Listen without judgment. Give reassurance and provide information to students. Encourage students to get professional help. And remind them that there are supports in place, such as parents or close friends, who can be there in the time of needs. But what can a student do on their own to try to combat some of these pressures that lead to anxiety? For starters, they need to learn to be resilient. This could be as simple as getting together, talk with friends, and even with their parents. Social interaction is key to overcoming anxiety. Cut themselves some slack. When something bad happens in their life, the stress of whatever they're going through may heighten their daily stresses. They need to relax a little. Create a hassle-free zone. Make their room a hassle-free zone. Not that they keep everyone out, but that their home should be a haven free from the stresses and anxieties that may be caused in the classroom. Take control. Even in the midst of a tragedy, students can move towards their goals one step at a time. We need to remind them that it's piece by piece. 7. Express themselves. Tragedy can bring up a bunch of conflicting emotions, but sometimes it's just too hard to talk to someone about how they're feeling. Find alternative ways to share. Help somebody. Nothing gets the mind off of one's problems like solving someone else's. And finally, put things in perspective. The very thing that's been stressing them out may be all anyone is talking about right now, but thinking about the important things that have stayed the same, even while the outside world is changing, is important. These are just a few things that students and teachers can do to alleviate stress and anxiety. For more information, check out these resources or contact your local health authority.